Startuprad.io, your podcast and YouTube blog covering the German startup scene with news, interviews, and live events.
Hello and welcome everybody. This is Joe from Startuprad.io, your startup podcast and YouTube blog from Germany. Today I'm again on a Saturday in my cramped study and we are doing a recording in our media partnership with Frankfurt Forward, and we're welcoming the startup of the month, April, here from Frankfurt Forward, from more or less Frankfurt. Sorry for the interruption and the late posting of that, but as everybody else on this world, we had to deal with COVID-19 and the disruptions of everything that could take place in person. That also means the people who have been meeting to select the startup of the month. So we're a little bit behind there, but nonetheless, we are doing it. This time, I do have brothers here who co-founded a company. Hey guys, can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, thank you for having us. So my name is Jakob. I'm co-founder of Cansativa, and this is my brother Benedict. So maybe just a few words about us and the setup that we founded in. So I have a background in law. I studied law and practiced as a lawyer here in Frankfurt, focusing more on commercial litigation and corporate law. And maybe Benedict, you have some more words around you and your background, and then we can talk a bit about the setting of how we founded.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having us. So my background is I've been working as a strategy consultant for the last years in mainly automotive and pharma industry. Jacob actually in 2017 came to me and said, hey, I have a very interesting topic that I'm right now covering in my law activities, and he told me about the medical cannabis market, and that was actually kind of the start how we got into this industry, right?
Yes, absolutely. So I remember we had like a family reunion, and we talked about many different things, and one of the things was that I delivered a legal opinion on whether or not a company in Germany can have the word cannabis in the company name. Because this has been rejected by the commercial registry, because they told there is no legal trade in cannabis. There cannot be, and this is an illegal drug. And so I somehow was challenged as a lawyer to give some advice on it, and we found out that actually there was about to give a major change to the legal framework. And maybe this would be something that we could talk about if it's interesting for you, Joe.
Yes, of course, but just to make sure for everybody who's listening out to this in the world, there are 28 countries we've been in the podcast charts as of now, but this is no fancy mail order for cannabis. This is just a company for legal prescription medical cannabis, just to make sure, even though we're now losing approximately 90% of our viewers, but nonetheless, that is something we'll have to make clear. Yes, medical cannabis is now legal in Germany. You need a prescription from a doctor, and that's where you guys actually come in, right?
Yes, exactly. So as you said, it's a strictly legal and pharmaceutical market. So it is the market that has the highest entry barriers in Europe, I assume, and it's even more regulated than energy. It's more regulated than general healthcare because it is both a narcotic drug and a pharmaceutical product. So what is important is that in early 2017, the German lawmaker decided to install a framework in which cannabis can be a prescription drug. And so once a doctor in Germany decides that the product might be suitable for one of his patients, then he can prescribe either a finished product, like there's some sprays or capsules, but the main market, I think we will talk about this a bit later, is about flowers and extracts, and that's where we are coming in. Since early 2017, we were building a cannabis as a platform, a solution where we have in-house capacities for storage, for fulfillment. So we actually move cannabis products every day especially cannabis flowers. So this is a unique system in Germany where cannabis flowers can be a prescription drug that is covered by the public health insurance company. So this is mandatory if you have a severe illness or disease that you receive cost coverage. And yeah, this is the setup that we found it in. And maybe Benedict, you have some more remarks on how it was like when we all started. I remember the times that we were packing the products ourselves and in night shifts and over the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. It was actually really crazy times when we founded the company. So maybe just some quotes back there. So, for example, as Jacob said, he, after his work shift as a lawyer, actually went to our first facility like at 9 p.m. in the evening to really pack the first packages and send them out to pharmacies by himself. And me working as a strategy consultant with like similar workload like a lawyer, I did like the night shift in terms of answering emails and so on, thinking about the business case, thinking about the future growth of the company. So it was really hands-on, and we did everything from scratch on our own, built like the first rooms and storage on our own, cleaned the toilets and all that stuff. And now we have 2 facilities, have 10 employees working hard for us. And as of now, we became one of the leading importers and wholesalers in Germany.
What I would be curious would be a story from the very beginning when you did all the work by yourself and you told your co-workers or your boss, sorry, I have to leave, I still have to mail out some cannabis.
Yeah, so I remember when we received our first shipment, which was around noon, and so I had to provide a very good excuse to my colleagues why I was about to leave for 2 hours or so to receive a shipment. And I told them, yeah, I receive a shipment, I have a side business and so on. And they asked me, okay, this pharmaceutical stuff, isn't it? And I told them, oh yeah, it is. So I receive about 20 kilograms of cannabis. they really, I think like the same reaction that you just showed. They asked me, are you serious? You are a lawyer. You have a good reputation. People go to jail for cannabis. But actually, I mean, the overall reaction was quite positive, because I think many of our peer groups, they encouraged us in founding a company, going in a venture, try something. And I think back in those times, it was somehow hyped. It was a big thing, and many people were just very curious about it, because they didn't even know that there is a legal market for cannabis. But I know that your peer group, especially at your former employer, is a bit more conservative, a bit more corporate world. Maybe you have a bit of a different view on this.
Yeah, but I have similar stories to share. So maybe before I talk about my former employer, also what is important is like the family background. So you must know that our dad is a heart surgeon, our grandfather is a former pharmacist. So at least our closest family, they understood what we're doing is pharmaceutical, it's medical, it's legal, and they were actually very supportive of all this. So for example, our dad, when we had the idea to found the company, immediately said, okay guys, I support you with some capital to push this idea into a kind of seed phase. And that was also one part of all this when we founded the company. And when it comes to my employer, I worked in the strategy consulting unit of one of the biggest automotive companies in the world, actually. And some of my colleagues were really like, okay, Guy, you have a clear track record. In like 5 years, you're probably in the upper management of this company. You will earn a lot of money. You have a lot of responsibility. You have a lot of people working for you. And you are really thinking about quitting this job and selling cannabis. And I was like, yes, I want to do this. I see a huge opportunity. It's actually my chance to really do what I want, to work with Jacob. And that was actually kind of a dream that we had when we were even younger and grew up in Kassel and, strolled around and thinking about what is possible in the future. And then for me, there was actually the decision made pretty fast. And then when I communicated it to my former employer, like the leadership team, they were actually very supportive of me leaving the company. So always said, okay, the door's always open if you want to come back and so on. So it's like there's two parts of the story.
Sorry, but it was when you know the lawyers here in Germany, especially the corporate lawyers. For everybody who doesn't know that, but you can assume there's a lot of corporate lawyers here in Frankfurt because you always get paid as a certain percentage of what the deal is worth. So all the big deals, there's a lot of work involved and the people are earning a lot of money. And those corporate lawyers, they're very conservative. They know they have to be reliable. And it's just an amazing story. Oh, I have to go back home. I received 20 kilograms of medical cannabis. It's just hilarious. That said, I have personally, unfortunately, no clue about medical cannabis. Can you talk a little bit about, you've been talking about flowers. What parts are the real important medical parts? And what is it treated for? I do believe it has relaxing properties.
Yeah, so I think what is most important about cannabis as a medicine is that it is still a field that is not done much research on. There are many people that say cannabis is the new wonder drug and it will cure cancer and it will bring peace to the Middle East. But definitely it is not the case. There is a huge potential, but we explicitly want to say that there is a potential that we have to talk about that is there, but there's not that much evidence in the clinical research. So there is a field of what the product is being prescribed for and used for, but it is not the case that we have a significant evidence base that the treatment is right. So this is more a model of real world evidence that is created right now. We will come back later to this when we are talking about more of a tech perspective in this field. But it is used for 80% for pain, for chronic diseases that involve multiple sclerosis and many other diseases that are like related to chronic pain, so that the THC and CBD components will be used as pain relief and for relaxation, as you said. But it is still a high demanding therapy. So the doctor has to monitor his patient very closely. There is a model of titrating. So you start low and go slow to find the right dose of the product. And what is used is the flower as something that contains every part of the product. There is another buzzword in the industry, the so-called entourage effect. There's not that much research on it as well, but it is something that can be observed, that a patient reacts really positively of a specific strain or variety or flower type. And on the other hand, there are more people that are more focusing on a more pharmaceutical point of view. So they are using isolated substances as isolated THC to really have a monosubstance where you can do a better research on, so that you have a closer, better understanding of how actually the product works and affects the body. So there are somehow two different areas. The more observing physicians, they say what helps is treating right, and more a people that are open for phyto pharmaceuticals as such. And on the other hand, there is some more research orientated people that would be going more for extracts. And there are some finished products that already hold a market authorization, but the indication fields are very, very narrow. So, for example, there's a product that has been authorized for the treatment of two child epileptical syndromes. and there might be 10,000 patients in the whole European Union for this kind of indication. So there's still something to do on this side of the field.
Understood. There's some more questions because you guys are dealing a lot with logistics. As you said, you send out, you mail out, you receive a highly regulated substance. I would be curious, how does it influence the logistics you guys have to go through? And does your warehouse look like a modern fortress?
That's a good question, and actually we have a highly secured warehouse, so you have camera surveillance everywhere, and you have like a safe room where we store our products. So actually it's not really possible to get access to the products without the authorization. And also within our teams, we have a certain restricted authorization to have access to the products. So it's not only about like external security purposes, but also in terms of quality system and who gets access at what point in time to the product. And this is very important, the topic quality management. And it's less about, let's say, the pure security aspect, but more about the qualification, validation of all the partners who are in the supply chain. And this means from cultivation over manufacturing steps, over the import processing, to the warehousing, to the logistics partner who delivers the product to pharmacies. We know actually each and every single step of it, and that makes it that complex and that highly regulated. A lot of documentation and paperwork is necessary, but this also creates, from a market perspective, obviously certain hurdles to enter the market.
Yeah, as Benedict said, strictly pharmaceutical. So I wanted to just drop two stories to make this a bit more interesting, maybe for the people that are not that much into pharmaceutical and quality management, which is 99% of the business. But we had two very I think, nice experiences. The first was when we had our first shipment from Latin America. They had the first export of legal cannabis ever in this country, and they prepared the shipment for export and custom clearance in the airport, and it was basically around 2 kilograms of raw cannabis flowers, high THC, so the good stuff. And they went with the customs clearance agents in a Latin American country, and they had a dog that was trained to identify illegal cannabis. And the people on the field, they could smell the product, and the dog just walked by and didn't indicate that there should be something here. This was very interesting to hear. They have, I think, something to do. And the other thing was, as Benedict said, we have a warehouse and we have a direct wire to the police. And once the alarm goes off, because you always have some problems, some technical issues, and then they get an alarm, but there's nothing happening. And the first time this happened was noon on a Thursday, and they arrived with a SWAT team, like 20 people in full armor, machine pistols, machine guns, and they blocked the blocked parts of the city in Frankfurt, because they assumed there is a cannabis wholesaling company that has been I don't know, attacked by burgers or whatsoever. There's some interesting videos I could share with you afterwards or sometime when we meet. This is, I mean, interesting, but you don't want to have this every day. So a kind of a thrill, war stories from the beginning. But what happened is that we reinstalled the systems, calibrated the sensors so that this won't happen again.
Yeah, but absolutely, from time to time it happened that such an alarm goes off during the night, and then someone has to take care of it and needs to, welcome the police and the SWAT team and tell them that it is, just a maybe spider walking over the camera surveillance system, because it was at the beginning obviously some further setup to be done until everything runs smooth and properly as it runs right now. And then maybe one last very short story. In this industry, you also have a lot of people who are like really bullshitting around and tell you, okay, I have a big facility, it's all certified and, running processes. And I also remember in one case, we actually, I believe those guys flew to the facility to, look at it, make a high level pre-audit to look if business is possible. And, there was just a field without any construction thing on it. So, and this is also reality, that there are a lot of people in the industry who are telling you bullshit stories, and it's important to identify those who are doing good things and are working on this medical cannabis topic very professional.
I see. I would have loved to get more stories, and if you already know all the people in the Frankfurt SWAT teams by first name basis and stuff like that. But we're not here to talk about all those stories, even though they're very great. Can you guys now tell, since you're now a little bit more grown company, in what is your core competence? I do assume you run the storage to deliver the pharmacies. And what type of market, what type of cannabis are you currently focusing on?
Yeah, maybe I kick off, and Jacob, you can just add if I miss something. So we understand ourselves as a wholesale company. So we understand Cansativa as a one-stop shop, meaning we have a comprehensive product portfolio of all the possible and legal medical cannabis products that are available. This is one very important part of our business. And then we understand ourselves as a market access partner. So we help suppliers to be connected to the German market. What does it mean in our daily business? Actually, we import and move products from around the globe to Frankfurt, store them here at our safe room, and then sell them via our pharmacy sales channels to pharmacies nationwide in Germany within 24 hours. This, in a nutshell, we have as of now around 10 different products in our portfolio. We are continuously expanding that portfolio, which makes us actually unique in the German medical cannabis field. We are an independent player with probably the biggest variety of products in the product portfolio. And our sales team is every day working hard on the best service level that is possible to serve the needs of pharmacists who desperately need the products that will be handed over to patients.
Yes, I do believe also the patients, they have the prescription for a reason. And of course, they don't want to run out of the drugs. Given the current time, I was wondering, do you actually feel any disruptions of your, as you said, global supply chains due to COVID-19, the coronavirus?
So we see that everyone in the industry that is actually a relevant player has a good management on the risk side. So they started early to prepare measures that we don't have some disruptions in the supply chain. And I think as the whole supply chain people are very professional in this field, at least the people that are already on the market. We didn't see that there is a imminent threat. So what is a problem is that, for example, we divided the team in different shifts so that the people don't meet each other, so that we can operate our warehouse through those crises. And the same happens within logistics, within the cultivation sites. So this is something that is more a topic of how efficient can you be. But we see that the inbound product importations are still as stable as they were before. There are some disruptions from time to time because you have cultivation cycles. You have sometimes problems of getting export and imports permits. So this is something that the industry knows because it is quite a young industry. We face, I think the major issue is that right now it is hard to get a authority to inspect the site because they don't travel. So it is more a thing about the upcoming timeline of products, so that things are getting postponed. But for the level of product that is in the market, we don't see that it is affected by COVID-19. But there was definitely a higher demand because the people don't want to go every second day to the pharmacy. They are like pooling their prescriptions. The pharmacies are pooling the orders so that everyone is reducing the social contacts.
Sounds like you haven't had a big disruption from COVID-19 into your supply chain. And because somebody will ask me about it from some supply chain or other company, are you available after COVID-19 as consultants for supply chains?
Founding a company and being successful is all about focus. So I would assume would be very interesting, but I would rather say no because we have a lot of projects that need 100% of our focus. So yeah, might be interesting to maybe write a paper about it and how it was affected and how we maneuvered through the crisis. But
Yeah, maybe that's something for some random PhD thesis in 5 years or something, or in a book or something. What's always worth to think about when you're getting older and look back on your business and professional career. But right now I'm 31, so maybe I have another 40 years to start this kind of project.
I see. Talking about age and time, we're now recording more than 25 minutes already, so I would like to get close to the end. And since this is sponsored by Frankfurt Forward, I was wondering, could you give us an impression what Frankfurt means for you? Because you guys told us you are actually from Kassel, since 80% of our audience is not from Germany. That's a city to the north of the of Frankfurt, still inside the state of Hessen. For everybody who's using long distance trains, that's where all the trains in the north from to Frankfurt are going through. What does Frankfurt mean for you? Why did you set up your company here?
So maybe I start and then Benedict, you can add. So I came to Frankfurt directly after my studies. So I considered Frankfurt as being a very good school to have your first job. I received my legal training here. We have, I think, the best law firms in Frankfurt. It is a buzzing point in terms of the financial sectors of professionals overall. So for me, Frankfurt was more a choice of where I want to receive my final training and starting my job. We decided to found a company here because the ecosystem is I think very good. There are some very good initiatives by the city of Frankfurt, for example, Frankfurt Forward, and the people at the city, and the initiatives are very interested in boosting startups. And you have many people that are that can give you advice, beginning by highly trained lawyers, notaries, tax advisors, and I think it's very international, so that it's easy for us to reach out, a bit easier than if you were founding in Kassel, for example, which is not a bad city, but just a small town somewhere in Hessen. But maybe Benedict, you have some more insight because you moved to Frankfurt when Cansativa already was operating.
Yeah, so for me, really, Frankfurt became a home. When I worked as a consultant, you can imagine that you travel a lot, that you're not really at one spot the whole time. And for me, it's basically the first time since 12 or 13 years where I really can say I'm at one spot longer than a certain time period, like a year or so. So for me, it was also personally very important to arrive at the city, enjoy also the lifestyle of the city. And Frankfurt, has a lot from bars, culture, and so on. It's actually a great city. Although I have to admit that there's a actually big rivalry between Kassel and Frankfurt. I played ice hockey for a lot of years, and as the Kassel Huskies, it's a famous or formerly famous German ice hockey team, and the Frankfurt Lions back then. the fans, they really hated each other. So it's like, for those who are not familiar with the German ice hockey league, it's like probably Barcelona versus Real Madrid type of rivalry. So for me, it's also from a personal perspective, at the beginning, there was some hurdle to really move to Frankfurt, but now I totally arrived and feel home.
And now we see that we have the airport right here. This is very good for inbound air freight. We are in the middle of Germany, so it's for us easy to deliver to all our clients all over Germany, which gives us some competitive advantages, because we can have outbound logistics in the evening and still serve our clients in the morning next day, which is in the fields of narcotics logistics. Quite an advantage for us. So, but it wouldn't be true if we said we came to Frankfurt to found the company. We were in Frankfurt, and we love Frankfurt, and that's why we founded the company here. But it wasn't a choice of it is the best spot, because when we founded there wasn't the best spot, because the industry was just being born.
Great. There's actually nothing I would add here. My audience already knows my most favorite thing about Frankfurt. Frankfurt has a lot of very nice places. Unfortunately, it's very good in hiding them. Nonetheless, it was just a pleasure having you guys here. Best of luck for the next time, and hopefully no more disruptions, and all the best. Thank you very much. I enjoyed the interview.
Thank you very much. Likewise.
Thank you very much. Likewise.
That's all, folks. Find more news, streams, events, and interviews at www.startuprad.io. Remember, sharing is caring.